Well, hello and welcome to Hey Boomer. My name is Wendy Green and I am your host for Hey Boomer. Hey Boomer is all about helping us live the best lives as we age. And I know for sure that having supportive relationships with ourselves and with others makes the journey smoother. So, my goal is to bring on guests who will provide us with the wisdom and insight and knowledge for what it means to have dependable, supportive relationships in our lives. So, today we're talking about solo aging, who will take care of us when we get old, who we might have to take care of. And it just so happens I had a solo aging experience today. That turned out very well. So if my mom is listening, don't worry, Mom. But what happened is about 3:40 this morning, my smoke alarm started beeping. The batteries were dying. But it wasn't a continuous beep, so I was able to ignore it until around 6 when I got up and said, okay, I need to change these batteries. And as a solo ager, that means getting up on the ladder by myself with nobody else here and having to be extremely careful because surely I don't want to fall. And normally, in a normal situation, I would call somebody, come over and just be here, and I'm getting up on a ladder. So I didn't do that this morning because it was 6 o'clock in the morning. But, whether you're a solo ager or not, you may become a solo ager at some point in your life if you live long enough. And so, what are your plans? Have you really taken into account, do you have enough money to last you for a long life? Are you anticipating that your kids might take care of you? Or maybe you don't have kids, and so what's the next person that you would ask? And then the flip side, do you have friends who are solo agers, and might they be hoping, expecting, wondering who's going to take care of them and thinking, oh, well, you're such a good friend, maybe you will. So we're going to get some great insights into all of these questions from my guest today, Joy Loverde, who is a highly respected expert on solo aging, caregiving, and adult living. But before we tackle this topic, I really want you to listen up because we're going to talk about boomer believers. So what are the boomer believers? Boomer believers are the people that will come together once a month to meet with one of our amazing guests. And our guest on Boomer Believer this month is going to be Joy Loverde. So once you hear all of the wisdom that she's going to share with us, you're going to definitely want to become a Boomer Believer. So what we do is we have a Zoom meeting and you get to interact with her or the guest of the month and ask all the questions you want to ask and learn all the stuff that you maybe thought, oh, Wendy, you should have asked that on the call. You also would get access to being a member of the Boomer Banter, which is also a monthly gathering. That's more of a community gathering. We talk about all kinds of interesting subjects and we learn from each other and we form friendships with each other. That is also virtual. So if you want to become a Boomer Believer in time to meet with Joy next Tuesday, a week from this Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern time, then go to buymeacoffee.com/heyboomer0413 and sign up. It's only $25 a month. It is such a great deal and such a wonderful opportunity to learn even more. So let me introduce you to Joy and invite her to join us. Hello, Joy.
Hey.
I am so glad you are here. This is going to be amazing.
No, I'm delighted. I love talking about anything to do with planning and taking good care of ourselves as we all age together.
Well, let me do a real quick intro so people know a little bit more about you. So Joy is the best-selling author of The Complete Elder Care Planner, the 4th edition, and this amazing book, Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old, which is where I spent my time reading and studying. She's a seasoned keynote speaker, a brand ambassador for the senior living industry, and she has appeared on the Today Show, the CBS Early Show, ABC News, and NPR. Also, the Wall Street Journal reaches out to her, Washington Post, Time Magazine. Everybody wants to know what Joy is thinking about. I'm going to share her website with you at the end. It's elderindustry.com. And if you have not done your planning or you've started but you're stuck, you're going to want to be here, but invite your friends, right? Everybody knows somebody who needs a little extra time and effort to get ready. So invite them now. Tell them to tune in live where they can ask questions in the chat, or let them know that the recording will be available on YouTube and they will be able to listen to the podcast wherever they get podcasts. So, Joy, tell me your story about how you got involved in the elder care industry.
Well, I was 14 years old. I decided to volunteer to go to a nursing home on Thanksgiving at the invitation of the nun that was in my homeroom. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. And she looked around and said, "Who wants to go with me?" And I said, "I will." And we walked into a nursing home. It was pretty much dark, and 7 people were sitting in the dark. And I couldn't wrap my 14-year-old brain around why people were in this situation. I asked myself some questions, like, who are these people? What series of events led them to this situation, and where were their families on Thanksgiving? Now, these questions never left me. They still don't.
Yeah.
But I decided to do something about it. And when I turned 40, I wrote the first edition of the Complete Elder Care Planner in the hopes that people would begin to talk to each other about making plans for the future. And ever since then, the rest is history. I've been talking about caregiving and solo aging and aging parents for over 35 years.
Wow. So that's an amazing story at 14 and how it impacted you. So,
Yeah.
so the book that I was looking at, Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? Such an
Yeah.
important question. I mean, how do
Well,
you even begin to start to answer that?
I can tell you briefly how that came to be. Was I was giving talks for the as I've said, for many, many years, and people began to come up to me after my talks, and they would say, "I am taking care of my parents and my grandparents and aunts and uncles, but who's going to take care of me?" And these were people that were our age, Wendy, that knew that they may not have the same family structure, child-free or childless, experiencing widowhood, never decided to get married, or they're separated or divorced. And little by little, I realized this is the next big trend in our world of planning for our future self. So that's how that book came to be.
Well, it's hard to wrap your head around it. I mean, we feel, you and I both feel like we're very strong, healthy, independent women, and when you start to think about planning for that, sometimes that can feel creepy or overwhelming, or all of it's going to be okay. I mean, we all have different thoughts processes that we go through. And how do you address that?
The one feeling that continuously comes up when after people are finished feeling overwhelmed is the one about wanting to take control of the quality of their life as they go forward. So they go from fear, feeling creepy, as you said, anxious, overwhelmed, to, okay, I am an independent, smart person, and I can begin the process somewhere, and I will. And they begin to take responsibility for their own lives, which is all that I'm asking them to do. And then they see, it is possible. And you could tell from looking at the table of contents that there is a order to being able to feel the peace of going forward and making a plan.
Yeah. Well, you do have a lot of steps in here to make a plan. So I kind of want to, and a lot of worksheets too. I love that. But yeah, I want to start with just accepting the fact that we're all going to, if we live long enough, become solo
Mhm.
agers. And we have to make some decisions about, can I live in my house? Do I need to go to a nursing home? Do I need to go to continuing care? Do I need to go to assisted living? Those are important questions, Joy. And how do we
They
start to
really,
address those?
so Wendy, my model is not medical. My planning going forward is more based on a social model rather than a medical model. The reason I say that is there's no assumption or guarantee that we will even need care in our old age. My mother, in point, she never needed a day of care in her life. She lived
Wow.
independently, 92, died in her sleep. And she
Oh,
was an Italian mother, cooking us dinner to the day she died.
wow.
So what we need to plan for, because a lot of people don't, we really don't know if we're going to need care. But what are we going to need? We're going to need money. We're going to need a roof over our head. We're going to need to put our thoughts in writing and then get them legalized. And we're going to need friends if we begin to outlive people who are in our families.
Mm.
So we are going to need friends. So mine is more a social model. And that's also easier to swallow than, oh, what about a nursing home or assisted living? We may not ever end up there. Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. And yet, so many of those places, you have to get on a waiting list.
Oh, well, that's another conversation we could have another day. Um, I will tell you that the waiting list, because there are so many of us boomers, so people are assuming that they can move into, let's say, one of those life plan communities. We have 60-year-olds today who are putting deposits down on a room that they will never use for 10, 15 years, but they are holding a place because they know that there will not be a place for them to live if they want that environment. They are putting deposits down today. So this is one of my biggest messages. If you want to live independently and you want to live in a place that allows you to have an extremely high quality of life, there's already a waiting list.
Yeah. So that's part of the planning that you need to consider as you're thinking through all of this.
Right. It just takes a phone call. If you start doing tours at 50, 60, even 70 years old, and you say, hey, these places are pretty nice. And then you ask the question, well, what's it take to get in there? You want to hear whether or not they have a wait list and how
Mm.
long that wait list might be.
Hmm. Yeah.
There are so many people aging at the same time. The boomers are 77 million in number. That the waiting list for not only where we want to live, but some of the services that we want, huge waiting lists.
So if I'm a solo ager and I mean I do have children, but I don't want them to have to take care of me, right? And so I need to put together a plan and I need to make sure, like you said, have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, feel like what happens if I can't drive anymore? What happens
Mm-hmm.
if I need somebody I get sick, and there's no one here to take care of me. I mean, it's these kinds of what ifs that make this planning so difficult, I think.
I can understand that that would be overwhelming in terms of, well, how does it all come together? So one of the things that I like to tell people when they are beginning, besides the money, the next uh, the next topic to address is the one you were just referring to, which is, believe it or not, housing. Housing takes care of a lot of problems. If you live in the right place, you don't have to worry about driving. You either walk or you have on demand. If you're worried about care, you don't live in a single family home. You live in a situation like I do in an apartment building where I have 10 people, like I call it, a moment's notice.
Mm.
And I am also helping many, many people, and we all help each other. Housing takes care of a lot of things. So I urge people to take a look at, if you're saying, I want to age in place, and your housing does not support you with a
Mhm.
quality of life for the long run, then you're really just in denial of what you need to do for yourself. And that's do your homework and find out, how can I live here forever? And don't forget how much money it costs to have people come in and do services. It's
Right.
crazy.
That's such a good point because where I live, there's no buses that come through here. There's no way I can walk for groceries. So, yeah, that's a
Mm.
really good point. But then, as I said in the beginning, we talk about who will take care of us. But if I think about some of my girlfriends that are also single and that are childless by choice, or their children live across the country, I've never had that conversation with them about, have you thought about who's going to take care of you? Are you thinking I am? you know, I mean, how do you have that conversation?
You have it. Somebody chooses to have it. Hey, Jane, I think you and I need to have a very important conversation, and it has to do with our future. Would you be willing to have it with me? Is this something that we could do? And then you choose a time and a place that's convenient, and a place where it's comfortable. Because I'm Italian, have it over a meal.
Glass of wine.
Restaurant, right. Restaurants are typically not a good place to have highly sensitive conversations.
Mm.
Usually, comfort of your home where you won't be distracted or somebody doesn't have to run, and and begin the conversation by saying, you know, I am willing to bring this conversation up because it's important and we may need to talk about it. And here's the thing, Wendy, we need to say to our friends now, I'm not a caregiver. I'm not the right person for the job. And because of that, we need to have a very important conversation about, just in case you need care, how I'm not the right person, and I'll be happy to help you make a plan. But I'm telling you right now, it's just not something I see myself doing. That's a very responsible thing to do with people that you love, your friends right
Mm.
now. But I have other friends who say, I'll do anything for you. Call me 2 in the morning. I'm all yours. So,
Yeah.
but
Right. And so,
wouldn't
but we all have to know ourselves and what we are capable and able to do and to give. And you made a good point in your book too, Joy, about the financial side of that.
Mm.
Like if you have a super compassionate heart and your friend is struggling financially and you're like, well, don't worry about it, I'll pay for your Uber to the doctor, I'll get your care, I'll get your house clean for you, don't worry. There's some
Mm.
risks in that, right?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. And this is why, even if you don't want to talk about anything other than being with each other, the hardest conversation to have with a friend is, do you have enough money?
Gosh, I can't even
So,
imagine.
right. But what if they call you at 2 in the morning? You're there for them and they say, I need to do this, that, and the other thing. And oh, by the way, I don't have any money.
Yeah.
Now, wouldn't you rather find out now, so that if you are a planner by nature and they are not, then you know that there are ways to begin the process of researching what's available for them financially, and including qualifying for programs where they could get a lot of services. But we got to have these conversations.
Yeah. And you mention a lot of those programs in the book, which is helpful. And
Oh,
and as you said, if you can know ahead of time instead of in the middle of a crisis, then they're more prepared too. So much
Wendy,
better.
I can't tell you how many times mostly females would come up to me in a talk and they will say that their friends are disappearing left and right. When something happens, like they describe being deserted,
Really?
those are their words. My friends are deserting me. I'm experiencing problems, and they're of all kinds, and they disappear.
Yeah, because they don't know how to handle it. They've never had that
Right,
conversation. Yeah.
right.
Beth raises a good question here. She says, "My sister is very independent. Thank goodness my nephew's been able to help, but I don't think she has a network like you describe. And what if she doesn't, she's not open to you having that conversation with her, your sibling, like, I need you to get this in order because I don't want it to fall
Mhm.
on me."
Well, that's just a clear indication that we're not the right person for the job. We're not the right person to be an influencer. And I understand the sibling thing because siblings tend to be quite guarded with their information. So our job as a sibling would be, I understand you don't want to talk with me about it, but who can you talk to that you trust
Mm.
and that you can bring this forward? You don't have to tell me anything, but I would be serious. I am seriously concerned that you are planning and that you're getting stuff done. Would you do that at least for me?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, this is no different than if we're having a conversation with a parent. Same thing. If somebody wants to be guarded about their information, I I respect that. But I have to have evidence that they are moving forward in some way, shape, or form with planning. But many times I'm not the right person to talk with. Many times. Maybe
Well,
it's an advisor of some kind. And from the book, there's a lot of free and low cost resources to get this
absolutely.
information. Yeah. I mean, that's where I spent most of my time, because what bothers me about most most people's advice is, oh, just go talk to a lawyer, a financial planner. Those people cost a lot of money.
That's
What
right.
if you don't have money?
Yeah.
So I was very certain that having and offering low cost and no cost resources would be a key component of that book.
Yeah. Have you heard of the talk about death over dinner thing?
Mm-hmm. And the death cafes, yeah,
Yes. What do you think about that?
I love them. I've been to several, and
Yeah.
they're not conversations that are there's no guide. You just all show up in a room, willing to discuss whatever comes up, and it has to do with death and dying, and conversations go all over the place. And they're fascinating and they're funny, and people have a great time, and there's just a lot of relief in the room that they find like-minded people who do want to talk about death and dying. And once they get going, you'd be surprised. It's very enlightening.
Oh, I'm gonna have to try that sometime because
Yeah.
because I think it would take some of the fear away, like you sit here as a solo ager, you sit here in your home and you're thinking, okay, everything's fine now. and and you don't know what's to come, and then you get scared, probably better than most of us, fear will stop you in your tracks. And so
Mm,
by initiating these conversations, whether it's with a friend or a family member or a child or whatever, you start to normalize it a little bit, don't you think?
absolutely. That normalize is a good word. Very good choice, because and if you look out in the universe, there's no place to put this if someone does not want to engage with us in these conversations. On the other hand, when you start looking for them, there are many people who will engage in these kinds of conversations. It takes some doing on our part, but the safety in the room and the educational elements are priceless, Wendy.
So
I think, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, so tell me about some of the conversations that you have to figure out who's going to take care of you. Who have you talked to?
Well, I give talks on two different levels. One is to the caregivers, and the other is to the actual solo agers. And by now, because we're all aging together, it's all mixed up. So that we have people who are solo aging, and they are coming up with what's interesting. Like the common theme is the quality of the relationships that they have, both as a caregiver and both as a solo ager. So the quality of relationships determines a lot on feeling like, can this be the beginning of a social network or in a support network? So those are the highest themes that it's all about relationships. We hear a lot about technology, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's looking at a phone and thinking about getting an app and all that. But I have never, ever seen a robot in the hospital waiting room.
That's
Never.
right. That's right.
So the focus of most people's conversations is as the person who put the comment in the chat, how do we develop these kinds of relationships?
Mm-hmm.
That's key.
Yeah, it is key. And that's what, I'm really trying to work on with Hey Boomer is to recognize that our relationships are so important to us as we age. And it's not like we have to have, 100 friends.
No,
You only
no.
need a few. And I guess you need to recognize and not be disappointed, right? So you may think, oh, this one's going to be the one that's there for me. If they say they can't do it, love them anyway. They're being honest with you.
That's right. So there's a part in the book that you may have read already that asks the question, what kind of friend am I?
Mm,
So instead of trying to find friends, the first thing I do is look at myself and
great.
how am I as a friend? And there's even a self-assessment checklist in
Mm-hmm.
the book about, am I truly treating my friends the way they deserve to be treated? Because in the long run, if they do end up being there for us, we've earned the right to have them in our life.
Beautiful way to put it. That's right. And it takes effort and energy
Yes,
to be a good friend.
that's right. And the obvious thing is they do have to be local. If you have great friends all over, that's fine. But again, finding outlets to gain friendships, begin the process of meeting people that you think have the possibility of being a friend has to be nearby. It could
Mm-hmm.
be in your building, like where I live, or it could be in one of these places where it's active adult 55 and older. But it has to be somebody who can run over and
Right.
say, hey, okay, let's go, we're going to do this. But all of what I'm describing takes time.
It does.
when
So
are
start
when are
now.
Start now. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I think start to think about what kind of help you need. Like I think about when my mom or dad had to go to the doctor, to have somebody go with them so that you're
Mhm.
eyes and ears for them. Do you have friends that you would trust to know about your medical conditions that you would ask to go with you? Because you can't absorb it all at that point when you're the patient.
That's right. That's right. We definitely, that's a great place to start. As we're assessing our close relationships, would they be the type of person who would say yes to coming with me to a medical appointment? You know, would I be able to call them at 2 in the morning if I fell, or even have I been communicating that I would be that person for them?
Yeah. Yeah. And in what other ways might you ask a friend that you might need help? What other things might ask them?
That's easy. Social.
Come
I
over
mean,
and have coffee with me.
or do you both get out of the house? I mean,
Mm,
it's really important to get out there and be out and do things. What if your friend just likes to stay home? I mean, that causes social isolation in a hurry. So you also, like I said, this is not only about medical care by any stretch of the imagination. It really has to do with a high quality of life, for having fun, in doing things together that are enjoyable, inviting other people into a circle of friendships that develops over time. Whatever, it could be book clubs, it could be church groups, it could be a lot of things, but just not to just concentrate on health, because like I said, we may never really need help in that department. But boy, if there wasn't a lesson we learned in COVID, how
right?
much we missed our friends.
We
We
did, didn't we?
suffered emotionally, we suffered socially, we suffered spiritually. This is what friendships bring to the table, and we have to cultivate them. So I say the first thing is are you with people you really have fun with?
And it almost redefines what you're saying about with a solo ager then. So don't really think of yourself as a solo ager. You can think of yourself as living alone, but
That's
in a
right.
circle of friends, because I think that's what you're saying. That's so important, whether we get sick or not, whether we need their help or not. We need them emotionally, spiritually, socially.
Do you remember how we all felt when we went to the restaurant the first time after COVID
Oh
and
my
we thought we were
gosh.
let out of? It was the most incredible feeling, and we couldn't get enough of the people around us. And even strangers, we were so nice to everybody. We we were so starved for somebody to be near and to see and to touch and to laugh with. That's what it's about.
Yeah. So you're a planner, no question about it. There's so many um, checklists and ideas in this book. Who will take care of me when I'm old? Um, if I am not normally a planner, if our listeners are not inclined that way, what would you say would be the top 3 things for them to focus on today or over the next year?
Number one, how to finance a longer life. We're all living about a third longer. And we know that if you retire at 50, 60, you have the possibility of financing a lot longer life than after work. So, what does that look like to finance a long life? Secondly, housing. Where we live has everything to do with the quality of our life. So look at where you live. Are you're looking around it from a possible potential solo ager? Will you be able to really age in place? Take a
Mhm,
look at the questions that I offer in the book, and just ask other people, what
mhm,
do I need to know? And the third is putting all your wishes in writing
mhm,
and legalizing documents and doing your homework on what's available in terms of advanced directives, and also um, just a variety of agents who will come to your aid. They don't even in this day and age that we don't have to be related to them, but we
mhm,
have to develop professional relationships now so that we can see if we really trust them. And then the question to ask those people is, hey, if you decide to retire or you decide to close up shop, and you're my advisor, what's your game plan?
Mm,
Because I need to know.
right.
And don't hire a professional unless they have an answer to that question, like a lawyer or a financial planner. If
Yeah.
you're not going to be here, what's your succession plan? Because I'm counting on you, and there may be a time when I count on you when I can't even, I may not have my mental capacity to work any of this out. So
Yeah.
how does that work? We need to ask these people to cover our backs. And how are
Yeah.
they going to do that?
Yeah, that's good. My question to you, I mean, I've got the paperwork. I feel pretty good about that, right?
Well,
So
can I say something about your paperwork?
please do.
It also has a shelf life. As long as you have paperwork, that's great. You got to look at it every 6 months.
Every 6 months.
Yes, because you're naming people in those documents. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so they may meet, they may move, they may die, they may get dementia.
Yes, that's
So
true.
watch who you're naming, and you may have to change the information in those documents. Because we're at a certain age where we're surrounded by people that we may be naming that are close in age to us or a little behind us,
Mm,
doesn't mean they can't die, move away, or get dementia.
yeah. Amy, thank you for this comment. She says she worked in elder care. Um, she's up Northeast Maine, and she says many people who insisted on staying in their retirement home on the water, which was so far out of town and dangerous to get to in a storm. So extra important to consider the fact that help may not be able to get to you if you live in a faraway place.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, that's great. Um, and Doris reminded us that if you have your paperwork and you move out of state, then you need to change who's going to be there for you. Yeah, good point, Doris. Thank you. But what I was going to ask you, and I think we also have to be sure that we update who we're talking to about these different, like, you're going to be my power of attorney. So this is what that means. And here's where my bank accounts are and all of that, right? Obviously. But financially, okay, so we're 70. Chances of making too much more money at this point to take us to 100 have diminished from when we were in our 30s and 40s. And so, how do you work that plan when this is where you are now? This is what you have. How do you work that?
You have to get professional advice at this point. They're gonna ask you lots of questions. There are two professionals to speak with: a lawyer, no, three: a lawyer, a realtor if you own property,
Mm.
and a financial planner. And those three people must know about each other and work together to answer that question. Now,
Oh.
if you don't have money, that's okay. Then you go to the area agency on aging in your neck of the woods and you ask them for the local Medicare and Medicaid offices and the Social Security office, and you go sit down with them and say, I don't have anything.
Hmm.
I didn't plan. Help me out. What am I supposed to do? And they will tell you. They're
Really?
Yeah. So you have two roads. I got some money. I got no money. So
Huh. All right. So you don't have to just give up.
no, that's the point. I'm surrounded by, I live in a very interesting neighborhood where there are many people who are on just living Social Security and also rent. They don't have anything else. But because I live in a city that has an incredible program for older adults, I live in a age-friendly city. Chicago is designated, and they went through all this certification. If you
Oh.
choose to live in an age-friendly city, there are many programs, and I mean, they go to the opera, they get on buses, and they go on tours. They go to parks. They have a wonderful, robust program here. Fitness. We have 12 fitness centers that are part of our area agency on aging.
Wow.
There is so much available. And again, I talk about those low cost and no cost resources in the book because I believe we have all worked really hard to deserve the benefits. Now let's all take advantage of them.
Joy, this has been so helpful. A million more questions, I'm sure. Yeah. And people are going to get to ask you questions if they come to the Boomer Believer session, which is going to be a week from Tuesday. So February 27th, I believe that is. And in order to do that, you can sign up right now by going to buymeacoffee.com/heyboomer0413. I can't wait to see what some of the other questions are that come out when we meet again, because you are so knowledgeable and so, I mean, this book, like you can see where I have my place mark, because that's where I need to go back and get started on my work. You know, I felt like, oh, I'm good. I have my paperwork, but there's a lot more to it.
Little tidbits like that. I am always surprised when I go through our estate planning documents how we name somebody and they're just not qualified anymore. I mean, at our age, we are surrounded by people who are experiencing forgetfulness, and it's really opened my eyes to changing documents left and right.
Wow.
I know. It's just the way it is. So it used to be we could say, oh, you do it once, you're good to go. No, not anymore. Every 6 months, I look at our documents.
Well, thank you. I'm going to pull mine out here when we get off.
I didn't mean to put you to work, but.
Oh, there's plenty of things I still need to do for sure to be ready.
Oh.
Joy's website is elderindustry.com. And there's so many resources on there. And you can also contact her through there if you have, if you want to reach out or have her come as a speaker to one of your organizations. She is lovely. I absolutely adore her and so knowledgeable. So go to elderindustry.com and check out what Joy has to offer and get her books. Both, it's the Elder Care Planner.
The complete elder care planner. That's just as thick as the other one with resources. I mean, I'm a firm believer in helping everybody, no matter how much money they have or don't have. It's that kind of world. We all need all the help we could get.
That's right. We all do. Thank you. So next week, my guest is Rob Schwartz. You all might remember him as the son of Maury Schwartz, who has they wrote the book Tuesdays with Maury. And we're going to look at caregiving from the child's perspective. So Rob was like a secondary caregiver for his dad. I was a secondary caregiver with my dad. And, what does that mean when you are the child and your parent is ill, and what is expected of you, required of you? What are you able to provide? So I know that's going to be an interesting conversation. Each episode of Hey Boomer is an invitation to listen, learn, and apply the wisdom gained from the episode to your own life. The path ahead may not always be easy or what you expected, but it's traveled best with support and shared insights. The Hey Boomer Show is produced by me, Wendy Green, and the music was written and performed by Griffin Honrado, who is a student at the North Carolina University School of the Arts and my grandson. I know. Thank you, Joy.
I can't thank you enough, Wendy. This has been awesome for me as well.
Okay. See you soon.